We're going to hark back to the very beginning of our course, where I spoke about an experience I had when rolling around one night, and I had this sense of my body as a double helix tube, or a double helix of tube-bound fluid, and I was rolling in a deeply satisfying way. So we're going to explore this idea of tubes today. You know, the idea that we are, well, really, we're one tube, but five tubes. We have a tube for the head, neck, and torso, and we have a tube for each limb. And from each of those points, we can initiate movement from the hands or the feet, or actually from the head or the pelvis to either end. But everything moves through the tube of the torso. It coordinates everything. And it's coming to get a sense of the three-dimensional nature of this tube, you know, and how the limbs connect into the torso, that you know, gives so much possibility for how we can roll and move and extend ourselves. And on Sunday I had this experience where I was rolling around when developing this class, and I had this sense of, you know, asthma's been a problem for me most of my life, and you know, something I've grown up with and of course manage and work with. But I had this sense that my upper body was, you know, held down in some way, and I could feel this sense of the value of extending out in all directions, ascending behind me and in front and to each side. And I was thinking of these tubes, the way they extend out, thinking from the inside of the body out. And I had this feeling of you know, the arms and the legs are quite different, because the legs are, you know, they're an expression of length. There's three tubes through the bottom, and the two legs are each half of the pelvis. And then in the middle of that, like a Venn diagram, you've got the tube, or the diamond-shaped tube of the pelvic floor. And but in the shoulders, because the arms are an expression of width, they don't interlap in that way. They're separate. You have this tube coming up for the neck into the head, and then a tube coming out through the shoulder girdle into each arm, and they're separate. And maintaining the sense of space there, the width and the depth of each of those holes out of the rib cage, and the way we extend out of the rib cage, was a really satisfying experience, and we're going to explore that today. So there's numerous ways you could think. In fact, I'm going to share my screen now. We'll look at some images. You know, this is just one side of our body from the ground, you know, looking at the foot. You know, if we move into the foot, you can see, you know, and I've removed everything, all the bones and structures of the leg, just this cylinder that surrounds the leg. It's this tube, you know, that comes right up and joins onto the pelvis in a pretty interesting way, right into the base. And you can see from here how the muscle is going to connect. You know, so it connects most of the muscle from the back of the body, you know, the back of the legs, the hamstrings. They're connecting on here onto the sitting bone here, and then up into the pubic bone here in the front, and across the top for and up here for the muscles on the inside of the leg. And then down the outside of the leg, we have, you know, a whole sequence of muscles and fascia that connects, you know, over the outside of the hip, and then across the pelvis itself, the hip muscles joining onto the leg here. But the leg itself, if you feel your leg, it goes right around, from the sacrum right through here to the pubic bone, and then around, around here, right around the outside, right round to the top. So that, the muscles in the pelvis, the buttocks, they're leg muscles. It's the shoulder girdle and arms, the pelvic girdle and legs. But it goes right round, so it's the full half of the pelvic floor that, if you feel with your hands and trace the outline of the leg through the pelvis, you can feel that. Now, and if we look at it from the inside here, the sense of this elliptical shape of the torso. As we saw last week, we've got this diamond-shaped pelvis here. I shall come back to the diamond shape in a minute. But this shape here through the elliptical shape of the, right up to the top rib here, right around here. This is another area where it's very easy to get squashed in. The tendency when we're stressed is to focus on that area as a single point or a plane. We lose the three-dimensional sense of our body. And it's really useful to have a sense of this curve through the body so that we can feel the whole shape of the body, the roundness of it. Just switch models here. Not side there. You can see the connection here across the front of the pelvis. From here round to the down to the pubic bone, you've got the inguinal ligament there, and then underneath the legs, coming right around each buttock. But the feeling, if you hold it, it comes right around the buttocks. And then up on the side of the sacrum and over the iliac crest, right around to the side here and back down again. So this whole structure here, it's all leg. And if we look at it from, inside the body, I'm still in the skull. In fact, let's get rid of the skeleton. Boom. We look at it from inside the body here. Come back a bit. You've got the part of the leg here, but it comes right up to the top up here. And, this is the feet down here, these two things. So this is tube that goes all the way down there. And so that there's this third tube of the torso, which is intersecting through here. From where the sitting bones are. I'll put the skeleton back in. Oops. There we are, that's the angle I want. From the pubic bone down to the sitting bones, and from the sitting bones back to the sacrum. And then if we come up from here, and look at the arm from the inside, we've got this round hole that the arm extends through. And of course it's connected to the shoulder blade, and the thing with the arms is they're mobile. But it's in a very different position to the top rib. you know, and the manubrium here. So that's called the foramen magnum. It's the great hole. And, you know, it's here that the neck extends. So they're separate. You've got this hole here, and then you've got this hole over here where the arm comes out. And on the other side, let's just get it over here. Where are we? That'll be it, hopefully. Yes. So yeah, this separation between the tube going that goes right up to the head, and mind you, you'll see we're going to follow this all the way down the spine into the. It's a similar size to the space in the pelvic floor itself, but the pelvic floor is superimposed over the two tubes of the legs, whereas in the arms they're separate. Let's look at this from outside. You see that sense of spread here. So it's this ability to widen through here. That's what we have, this ability to extend our arms out to either side and support our weight. You know, you compare that to the legs. Now, it's interesting, in this model, they're not including the buttocks as the leg. You know, they've got that as pelvis, as separate. But really, I think shoulder girdle and arms, pelvic girdle and legs. But so I would actually include up to here, right round to there, as where that tube is. But I wouldn't include this part of the belly here. I'd include that as part of the torso and part of the arm. Because remember I was saying last week that the legs connect onto the pelvis from below, and the arms and the head connect into the pelvis from above. So it's really in the center. This is the middle of our body here, right there in the middle there. Now, if we go in here again, that should be all right. Oh, there we are. Right leg this time. Now I have the leg in there, the bones. Well, some of it disappearing actually, but we're in the shaft of the tibia at the moment, and then now there it is. So there's the tibia. You think that's in the middle. Remember, the torso is hollow and it has all these soft, moving, vital parts in the middle of the torso, but the limbs have bone in the center. So here's the tibia, and we'll come through into the knee. Here we are there's the annular ring around the knee and the cruciate ligament here. And then this is the tibia. And the tibia is disappearing now because we're in the midst of it. And then coming up through the tibia here into the joint. So you think, when you're thinking of the leg, we've got to think right around here. And right up to the top of the pelvis here, around the sacrum, up to the top of the pelvis and round to the front. Yeah. And from the pelvis all the way up to the space up here to the neck. So 5 tubes, 5 cardinal lines. This is one cardinal line, each limb, they're all the same length. Let's move this. And remember we have this, it's sort of diamond shaped through here. So this is, from the pubic bone here down to the sitting bone, across to the sacrum, and up to here. This is one extent of the tube. And then up here, straight through the torso, up through the neck here, and then right up to the head. And, oh yes, that's right. And so we have that sense of the tube here, and then we have the sense of the tube here, around the outside, on each side. And this sense of the figure eight that can also go from the pubic bone, right around here, this diamond shape from the sacrum out to the hip, and from the pubic bone out to the hip, that's reflected in the shoulder girdle. The diamond shape from the shoulder here, from the top of the sternum here out to the edge of the arm, and then from there into the center of the spine. So it's reflecting the two. And then in the middle of that, just like it is in the pelvis, you have this central channel, which you could, project all the way down through here, along the spine, over there and down through the pelvic floor. And up, of course, into the head. And it's how we organize these tubes relative to each other which determines how easy it is to move. So let's play with this idea of the tubes. And yes, you'll need a bit of wall. We're going to have our feet on the wall, although differently this time. We're not going to be stretching as much as connecting and coordinating and seeing how we can take the, I talked about in the email this week about a new story for humanity each time, we have this creative challenge, how we're going to live our life and how we're going to support, those close to us and our community and, now the earth. But in order to get there, you've got to get to the table. In order to write a story, you've got to get to the table. So that's what we're exploring today. Is how we actually, use our environment to interact with it. How we lift ourselves up onto our feet, using our hands initially. And we have to find a way of doing it where our head can be absolutely free so we can see where we are. That's going to be the theme next week. Looking more closely at what we actually have. But for now, come and find a place near the wall where you could place your feet on the wall. Yes, and lie down on your back. Yeah, good. That looks like the right place. So, lie down on your back near a wall with your feet up on the wall. So your pelvis needs to be close enough to the wall that your legs will be bent, but your pelvis is far enough away from the wall that your legs will hang there by their own weight. Feet are about hip width or wherever is comfortable for you in this moment. And just allow yourself to settle. And sense the movement of your body as you breathe. The way your head, neck and torso move as you breathe. A cylinder, a tube. And extending out of the tube of the head, neck and torso, we have the 4 other tubes, the tubes of the legs and the tubes of the arms, pelvic girdle and legs, shoulder girdle and arms. And maybe could you take your hands, actually if you wanted to you could turn your screen off too, because it might be useful to actually hold the pelvis, or hold, to trace the connection of your legs onto your pelvis, just so you've got a bit more privacy. You don't need to, I mean, but nevertheless, you could always, or turn your camera to the side or something, just so you have that freedom. So hold on to your sitting bones now. With your feet on the wall, hold the sitting bones and think that's the middle of the pelvis from front to back. In a sense, the space between there and the pubic bone in front and the sacrum behind. You feel that, the depth and width of the pelvic floor, the base of the pelvis. And then take your hands and place them on the front and back of the lower part of your neck, the top of the rib cage, the first rib. And just feel the distance between the front and back of the sternum and the spine. It's a similar distance, isn't it? You could imagine that tube, that it extends from there up into the head, and then down from there through the rib cage and lower back and belly through to the pelvic floor, to the base of the pelvis. And if you roll your pelvis up and down, you tilt your pelvis a little bit so that the sitting bones come down toward the floor, which means the lower back lifts. And then the lower back flattens. And feel as you're doing that, the way the top of the rib cage is moving, the way the neck moves. As the lower back goes up, the neck goes down. And vice versa. Well, place your hands now, palms down, under each side of your pelvis. So it's on either side of your sacrum. So your pelvis is a little bit elevated now. And once again, roll your pelvis up and down. So your lower back arches, and then it flattens. And allow everything to relax as you do this. In particular your shoulders and your arms, so that you could feel how your whole spine moves. How as your lower back flattens and the base of the pelvis tips up, your neck lifts. And as the lower back lifts and the base of your pelvis goes down toward the floor, the neck flattens on the floor, and the circle in the first rib, that goes down toward the floor with the pelvis. So notice that as you're rolling your pelvis up and down, the neck and the lower back are moving in opposite directions. Due to the nature of the rib cage, how the spine connects to the rib cage. And the base of the pelvis and the top of the rib cage, they move together. The foramen magnum, the great hole at the top of the rib cage there, and the pelvic floor, they're moving in the same direction. And leave that. And could you move your pelvis in a circle? Move your pelvis in a circle. Now, there are numerous ways to do this, and whichever way you're doing now is perfect. But notice if you allow your shoulders and your hips to be soft, you know, your rib cage will roll just as much as your pelvis will roll. As will your head. And if you're feeling that your rib cage isn't moving, because frequently, you know, we often hold our rib cage and shoulders tight, make the movement smaller. Tiny movement. And it's an interesting thing, because if we do a really tiny movement, do a very, very small movement with your pelvis now, you know, now you can feel your skeleton sliding within the suit of skin. So, you know, notice that suit of skin, the shape of it. And in fact, leave that, take your hands out, let your feet down the floor. You can keep your knees up, stay where you are on the wall, but just sense how that is. Consider that tube that extends all the way through the torso, but, you know, in particular, from the base of the pelvis, the pelvic floor, up through the torso and out through the top of the rib cage into your neck and head. And think of the shape of the skin, the shape of the tubes. And once again, place your feet back up on the wall. And consider each leg. You know, the pelvis and leg on each side. Right around the circumference of the skin. A tube from the pelvis right down to the foot. And now could you move your right leg out to the right a little bit? So it's still on the wall, your left foot is up on the wall, straight ahead. The right leg is out to the side, wherever it's comfortable. You could have it right down to the floor if you like, out to the side, but wherever it's easy. So we've rolled over onto the right side of the pelvis here. Now roll your pelvis in a circle here around this right hip. And as before, you know, if you allow your rib cage and shoulders to be soft, the whole body is going to move. But in particular, consider the tube of your right leg. You know, you're rolling over the buttock muscle and over onto the hip. And then as you roll it down, you're rolling down toward the sitting bone. And then back up to the sacrum, and then around over the top of the bony wing of the pelvis on the right. And you could take your hands, you could feel, where is the top of that bony wing? And from the top of the bony wing down to, you could put your right hand from the top of the bony wing, the front of that, down to the pubic bone, and take your left hand and put it around the top of the rib cage there, near where the collarbones are, and feel as you're rolling this right hip around in a circle. You know how your rib cage and head are also rolling. But now with the hands on the front, you can sense this whole tube of your torso, from your face and over down through the neck and the front of the body, down to the front of the pelvis. And from your hands here, the skin and the muscle, it extends out and down over the inside and the front of the leg down to the foot. And you could feel where the sitting bone is, and feel how the bones of the pelvis on this right side and the leg are surrounded by muscle and fascia and skin. So consider it and imagine it from the inside, like you're inside your body, and you could fly down inside your body and look out through the hip, down through the leg, through the inside of the leg into the foot. Yeah. And then imagine the left leg now. Sense the left leg. Hold the sitting bone on the left leg, and now move your left leg in a circle. It's sitting up on the wall so that this side of your pelvis is off the floor, but feel how you can roll it. And the shape of the tube here. It comes from the top of the pelvic bones, the bony wings, right down to the sitting bones and the sacrum and the pubic bones in front. And the muscle wraps right around the leg, so it's each side of the pelvic floor. It goes right into the middle and then out to the side, the skin. And through any of these tubes, the tube of each leg or the tube of the head, neck and torso, you can initiate movement. So think, you can press on the wall with your left foot to make it easier to roll this hip in a circle, but feel through the tube. And of course, as you're rolling the pelvis with the left leg, using the left foot on the wall, it's also rolling the right hip round in a circle. So you can feel both tubes. And if you stay there now, with right leg over to the right, left leg up on the wall, now move the tube of the torso around in a circle. So move your pelvis around in a circle. You can use both feet on the wall, and this diamond-shaped tube from the base of the pelvis up through the torso, through the top of your neck, it goes over the two tubes of the legs. It links them. And in fact, could you interlace your fingers, place your hands behind your head, lift your head, and now move your head and your pelvis in a circle together. Your legs are on the wall. You can change direction and make it any type of circle that's easy for you. So you could feel this right through your body. And even though you're moving the pelvis, you're moving the tube of the head, neck and torso, feel the way the two tubes of the legs, how they're participating in this. And then leave that, come back to the middle. In fact, you could move away from the wall if you like and just let your legs be long and rest there, sensing how that is. The difference to each side. And the sense of the space through the right leg. The sense of that tube. Well, come back to the wall again with your feet up on the wall, comfortable distance apart. Just notice how that feels now. And now move your left leg out to the side a comfortable distance. And you can adjust that comfortable distance as you go too. But for now, just roll the left side of your pelvis in a circle. Rolling your pelvis on the floor over the left hip. You could hold the sitting bone here on the left side. And feel how the tube of the leg surrounds the sitting bone. It's in the middle. And with your left hand, or with your other hand, feel the top of the bony wing on the left side. So you get a sense of the volume of this leg, of this tube. Maybe place the left hand on the front of the bony wing of the pelvis and the fingers on the pubic bone, and your right hand on the top rib. And feel from the front, down over the front of the leg, the whole tube of the leg, connecting up into the bottom of the pelvis. And, notice as you're rolling around this left hip that the rest of your body is moving too. Your rib cage is rolling in a circle, and your head. And if it's not moving in a circle, it's probably because, you may be holding on, so make the movement tiny. And slow. So you can consider how the tube of your left leg opens out into the tube of your head, neck and torso. In fact, think right through the torso, right through the top of that tube in your rib cage there, right up to the head. And now you can leave your hands, move the right hip in a circle. Moving the tube of the right leg, you can use the right foot against the wall to make this easier. You can push or pull. How is this different using this right leg? And you could use your hands to feel the extent of this tube of the right leg. The whole wing of the pelvis, and right down to the pelvic floor, and right to the center of the pelvic floor. And how rolling the right hip in this circle, how this influences the rest of your body differently. And then leave your legs there. Interlace your fingers, place them behind your head, and now lift your head and your pelvis. Move your head and your pelvis in a circle. So this time, it's the tube of the head, neck, and torso we're moving. And consider the size of the space in the base of the pelvis, in the pelvic floor there, and in the top of the rib cage. That tube all the way through. Think through that tube from the pelvis, through the pelvis, over the lower back and into the rib cage, through the rib cage into the neck and up to your head. You can change directions. Notice how the whole body participates in this. Lovely. Leave that. Come back to the middle. Let your legs be long and rest there. Notice how it is now. Now come back to the wall and place your feet on the wall again, knees bent and pelvis away from the wall far enough that your legs will just hang there. Interlace your fingers behind your head. And consider the three tubes in the pelvis there. The tube of each leg takes each half of the pelvis, and the tube of the head, neck, and torso that goes through the middle there. How they intersect. Three circular shapes, a bit like a Venn diagram. Yet in the upper body now, imagine the top of your rib cage. You have a hole in the top where your neck comes out, and then out to each side. I'm assuming your elbows are out to the side. There's there's no hole there, but in terms of the skin, there's a hole out to each arm, a tube out into each arm, and it's separate. It's separated from the tube of the neck. So lift your head and your pelvis and move your head and pelvis in a circle again. And as you're doing that, consider the circles into each arm, the tube of each arm, the shoulder girdle, and each arm. And from the collarbone and the shoulder blade out to the side, surrounding the arm. And now, how do we maintain the sense of width here? Could you roll yourself over to the right? Roll yourself over to the right. You can walk your feet over and then back to the center. You have your head lifted and you're walking yourself over to the right using your feet. But, sense this tubular structure of your body. And in a way, given that I've been speaking of 5 tubes, one for each limb and one for the head, neck, and torso, but in this orientation, we could consider 3 tubes. We could consider the tube of the head, neck, and torso, but then the tube of, when you're rolling onto the right side, the right arm and the right leg, because we're lying on it. You could roll over to the left now and feel the same thing, the tube of the left leg and the left arm through the torso. It's this functional unit. So you're rolling yourself from side to side. And it's a good way to get a sense of the circular nature of this tube, the roundness of it. Leave that for a moment. Let your legs be long. Just sense how that is. Think of your full length now. And just sense of volume. These tubes can support each other, or they can initiate movement. Everything works together. Come back to the wall again. Have your feet on the wall again. Have your hands just down by your side, or maybe out at shoulder height, and roll them. You could roll one up and one down. Maybe roll your head toward the arm that's coming up. Just a very small movement so that you could sense the circumference of each of these tubes. Circumference around the base of the neck, at the top of the rib cage, and at the top of the shoulder, where it connects around the rib cage on the front and back, of each side. The bone in the middle. You can support your weight on your arms. Mostly it's only gymnasts or people that work on it who do that, but we have that capacity, just as we have the capacity to hang. Once again, begin rolling to the side to side, and how can you maintain the sense of space within the tubes of your arms and within the tube of your head, neck, and torso as you do this? So you probably have to lift your head, to have a sense enough space in the arm on the floor. And, you're using the legs on the wall to assist you to roll. You could even come over onto your side. You keep rolling. You can lift yourself up onto the elbow on that side and then come down. A roll over to the other side. You keep rolling over to the side, place one hand down on the floor, elbow toward the ceiling, the top arm, and keep moving forward. And, your elbow's on the ground. You can lift yourself up. And the thing is, it's by sensing the width of your body as you do this. The space between the shoulders. All the tubes can support each other, but, the arms, they can extend away from each other. So you have this sense of width through your body. And when you have the sense of width through the shoulders, and the volume through your arms, notice how it also makes it easier to maintain the sense of length. That length of the head, neck, and torso. Once you get it, you could actually, roll more easily. You get the sense of that round shape. You can just sort of roll, thinking of the width. This idea you're a tube that extends out to each hand and foot, down to the pelvic floor and to the crown of the head. And stay on the right side where you're balanced up on the right elbow. Feet are on the wall, and you're on the right elbow. And take your left hand and feel the back of the right shoulder, back of your neck. Notice how this tube is behind you. It goes right around your body. And, with the arm, when you're lifting yourself up like this, supporting yourself on the elbow, you can sense how the musculature and the skeleton of the torso, becomes an extension of the arm, of the thing that's this, is that you're supporting yourself on. So you think through the back and the front and the whole of each side, and do it on the other side. Roll to the other side. Come up onto your elbow. And you can look around. We had this experience lifting ourselves up on our elbow when we were babies. It was like a revelation. Oh, I can see further now. I can see something that's on top of that shelf that I couldn't see before. Now, leave that for a second. Just rest, let your legs be long. The sense of volume now. And the idea of yourself as tubes, tubes within tubes within tubes. 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels extending to every cell, or, within every, I think, third cell is a capillary. Now, once again, come back to the wall, place your feet on the wall. This process of rolling to the side, coming up onto the elbows, you can spend a long time refining that. maintaining the length of the width and thinking of the roundness of your body, using the roundness of your body. Try it now, rolling again to the side, but this time you can come up to lifting yourself on your knees and your elbows. Feet are on the wall still, you're still walking side to side, but you're rolling over to the side and you're maintaining the width between each elbow to lift yourself up, and then onto your knees and elbows, or knees and hands. It's this idea of you rolling to the side, you use the roundness. You roll over something like an elbow or a hand, and then you can lift yourself. You turn your pelvis, you keep turning the pelvis over, you can lift your pelvis up over the knees. You can actually raise yourself up here. And then in fact do that and come onto your hands and knees. Come onto your hands and knees and feel now on your hands and knees the sense of volume through your body, the tube of your head, neck and torso, and the tube of each arm and leg. Now crawl up to the wall and place the top of your head, the crown of your head, on the wall. And now roll a small circle around the crown of your head. And of course, allow all the tubes to be open. Your pelvis is going to be rolling around. Spine is lifting. And if you think the widening through the hips and the shoulders, then you can think right through the length of those tubes. Now, notice if there's any spots, that don't seem as clear. In fact, come away from the wall, just rest in sitting. Just notice how that is. If there's, anywhere that's, when you were doing that, you lost the sense of the whole tube, that you were thinking of the places where you're exerting effort, there, it's when we do this again. Think, soften, less effort, spread your attention through. But it's when we're babies, it's a different thing. Our limbs are so much bigger and our head is so much smaller. We have a different set of challenges. So we're going to take a different pathway to this coming up using the wall. To come up to the wall where you could have your head on the wall, a lot of the time it's the pressure on the hands. So put your hands, one hand on the wall, and in fact put two hands on the wall. So you're on your knees with your hands on the wall. And just get a sense of the pressure on each hand and the pressure on each knee. Think of the tubes of your legs, the tubes of your arms, and the tubes of the head, neck and torso. And in this position here, do a small circle with your pelvis and your head. Pelvis and head going in a small circle. And sense that tube all the way through your body, through the top of the rib cage, the great hole there, the first rib. Sense that space there, the back wall of the throat. And the way the pelvis moves, and consider that diamond shape from the sacrum to the pubic bone and out to each sitting bone. And then leave that for a moment and just push yourself away from the wall, still holding onto the wall. Though your hands are on the wall, but you're pushing yourself away. So your torso is, sliding between the rib cage. You can feel your shoulder blades coming together. The rib cage gets closer to the wall, and then you push it away, and the shoulder blades come apart. Sense through the width of each tube of your shoulder and arm on each side, and through the tube of your pelvis. And now, could you roll the left hip in a circle? Focus on the tube of the left leg from the top of the pelvis, the big bony wing, to the sacrum, down to the sitting bone and up to the pubic bone, and right around that. You think of the skin and the muscle that surrounds the bone and the leg, down to the knee and out to the foot. And in order to move this in a circle, notice what the rest of you is doing. I'll think of all the tubes, the 5 tubes, the other 3 limbs, and the head, neck, and torso, how they can adjust to make this easy. Nice. Come back and just sit for a moment. And is there a difference to the left side? And come back up again. Place your hands on the wall at about shoulder height and about shoulder width, probably. And now just notice how it feels to stay here first. And now move the right hip in a circle, the right leg. The tube of the right leg. Think of initiating this movement, this circular movement from the right leg. And think right around the leg, the back of the tube, the buttock, all the buttock muscles right there at the top, that's leg. Right down the front. And how the rest of your body participates. And now shift your weight from hand to hand. And notice when you lift one hand away, how that changes the pressure on the knees and also on the supporting arm. How that tube of the supporting arm, that's now stabilized against the wall. Keep your right hand there, reach away with the left. And consider how you can move the hips, the tubes of the legs, and the tubes of your torso to make this easy, to explore space. Anchored on the right hand. Now try the same thing with the left. Swap over to the left hand and explore space with your right. And sense these 2 tubes. How they work together, each arm and hand. And the tubes of the legs. Behind you, above you, everywhere you can explore. And put both hands on the wall and lift one knee. Either knee, it doesn't matter. And then explore space with the other leg. How is it different when you lift a leg? Leg's generally a bit heavier, but it means you reorganize over the supporting tube. And perhaps the tubes on the wall take a greater significance. And then do the other. Swap onto the other leg. Notice how you have to adjust to make this easy. so that you could sense the volume. And the tubes could be unkinked, open, and flexible, and able to explore the space around you. And then put both knees down and just move the pelvis and the head again. Notice if it's easier to feel. Lovely. Leave that lie on your back and rest. Hands, feet, head, and pelvis are the sensory organs of these 5 tubes. Once again, roll over onto your side, come onto your hands and knees near the wall. And this time, could you place your left hand up on the wall and your right hand still on the floor? Look at your left hand. It's as if, you're going to stand on this hand. Move yourself from here, from this point, as if you were standing on this hand on the wall. You could move all the other tubes. And think of the width between the hands, the width through the body, the width through each tube of the legs. And the length. So stay here and now move the head and the tube of the head, neck and pelvis, head, neck and torso in a circle. Moving the head and the pelvis in a circle. With one arm up on the wall, how is this different? And you can sense the space behind you with your head and your pelvis. Lovely. Come back to sit for a second. Beautiful. And come back to the wall. This time place your right hand on the wall as if you're standing on it. So have some weight on that. Bear, weight on that arm on the wall and the one on the ground. And now, move yourself around from the right hand, from the tube of the right arm. Sense the space behind your body. As you do, you could drop your head, which means your arm and your hand would be behind the shoulder girdle, or sorry, the spine. But when I say drop your head, I mean from the pelvis, so the whole tube of the head, neck and torso can move. And in order to do that, it means the tubes of the legs and the tube of the left arm, they need to be open and free and connected. Well, stay there. Now move the head and the pelvis in this orientation. Round in a circle. And sensing the space all around you. And then leave that. Put both hands on the ground. Just notice how it is to crawl there. And then place your right hand on the wall, then the left, and walk yourself a bit closer to the wall and lift the right foot onto the ground. And now with your left knee and your right foot, move your head and your pelvis in a circle. Move the tube of the head, neck and torso in a circle. Head and pelvis circling in a way that enables you to keep the other tubes open. The width between the shoulders and the hips. And the length of each segment. And then swap legs and do the same thing. So your left foot is on the ground now. This may be different. So in order to, you may need to move a little bit to find a comfortable position where you are then able to move your pelvis and your head in a circle. Length and width. And you could lift both feet onto the wall and walk yourself up to stand, still leaning on the wall. Now move your head and your pelvis in a circle here. Each of the tubes keeping open. You could walk yourself down onto the ground, onto your hands and knees, and then back up again. Thinking of these tubes being open. And then come up to stand and take your hands away from the wall and stand here, noticing how it is. The openness of these tubes, the 5 tubes. The tube of your leg from either side of the sacrum, right, the buttocks, the whole leg. Shoulder girdles and arms, and the sense of space around you. Turn and look. Lovely. And then shift your weight from side to side and now walk and just notice how it feels. With that sense of space. Within you and without you.